What's up? It's the Mindful Dude Show with Nick Clark, Dan Nevins, and today a special guest, Sean Silvera. The Mindful Dude Show is sponsored and brought to you by Play Hard and Love Big Radio, the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and stand-up paddleboard company based out of Folsom, CA. Check us out at spotteddogyoga.com. And to find the Mindful Dude Show, just go to Play Hard and Love Big Radio on all the major podcasting platforms, including YouTube, and just look for the ones that start with Mindful Dudes. Click on that, and you are going to be enlightened beyond your means. What's up, Dan Nevins? How you doing today, brother?
I am living the dream, my friend, one day at a time.
Yeah, you sure are. I love the headphones. I love the mic. You're stepping it up a notch, dude.
I had it all. Like I dusted it all off, and got it all. I felt like a little proper, so I had to get it dialed in.
There's something about having headphones on, almost like makes me feel like I'm wearing earmuffs.
Right?
But I got to say to you, just like personally,
it makes my ears so hot. They're so hot.
You got some hot ears, man. Hot ears. Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's upgrading your style. I like it a lot. It looks really good on you. I would probably keep this look inside the house for just podcasting, though. I'm going to do that. That's what I'm saying. I don't walk around with my earmuffs on all the time.
Lame.
Well, hey, man, we got a special guest here today, and I want to give you the opportunity to introduce Sean. Sean, I'm so glad to have you here. Dan, what do you have to say about this guy, Sean Silvera, that's joining us on the Mindful Dudes today?
Sean Silvera is one of the best dudes on the planet. I'll say this. First of all, he's a Marine, right? So anytime you meet a Marine, you'll know because they will always tell you that they're a Marine. And that's one of the reasons why I love Sean Silvera. But he's also like the first real yoga guy that I met. And Sean has a great story about how he came to yoga, and he owns Baptiste Yoga San Francisco, one of the best studios, like right there with Spotted Dog Yoga, one of the best yoga studios, not only in California, but probably the planet Earth. And Sean and his family are dear friends of mine, and I know you as well, Nick, and we are so glad to have Sean Silvera on the podcast today.
What's up, Sean? How you doing, brother?
Good. I'm doing really well. I kind of feel really uncomfortable being kind of naked in a room with three guys because I'm naked without the headphones and the mic, and you guys are all done up. So it's a little uncomfortable for me. But no, I'm doing really good. Excited to see you guys. I wish we were in the same place, but this is good too.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, something I have to say, Sean, is that we want to make sure that people get the opportunity to really understand you as a person, what you value, but most importantly, we want people to be able to see your ears because you have good looking ears, man.
Oh yeah. You don't hide them. Don't hide them with the muffs, bro. Keep them out.
Yeah. I got elf ears. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to just ask you how to go last night. Last night you had the man Baron Baptiste in your studio. I saw some videos. You were doing a master class with him last night. I had a couple people from my studio come down and take his class. What was it like to get him up live and personal in your studio last night, man?
Good. It was really good. Yeah, we've had him before when we first opened the place, and it was fun. And this time it was exciting showing him where we've come in like almost 10 years. You know, we started out pretty rough in San Francisco. The only studio like teaching Baptiste yoga for sure. And then so different than the rest of San Francisco. Like we don't have mirrors on the walls, you know, we don't play music. So like showing the progression, and he was really, it was really great for him to see that. And also that he was thankful and grateful that, you know, he said this is the first classes he's taught in 5 years. Really. He taught, you know, level 1 and all that, but felt like us in the affiliate group was really keeping Baptiste yoga kind of on the map and alive for the last few years, as you know, his business is rebuilding now. So that felt good. And I've always felt like that. I'm like, somebody's got to be out here doing this, particularly in San Francisco, where Baptiste yoga really started, his family and all that. And probably his family had the first yoga center in the US, you know, so kind of keeping that alive. And it was good seeing him, and people like came out of the woodwork to the class. I mean, we sold out in 15, 20 minutes, but you know, we got our team in first, then our local community. And when we opened it up, And when it was, put out on Instagram, it was like, or whatever, socials, like I was getting calls from people I didn't know. Like, Wade, I know Tammy Snyder from Cleveland, and we want to come to we have somebody that needs to come to the studio, worked with Baron back in the late or early 90s. So it was fun getting all those people together and getting them in the studio. And yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah,
And
big time, man.
he sends his love to both of you guys as well.
Right on, man. Did you tell him you were jumping on the Mindful Dude show today?
I did. Oh my God, Nick. Oh my, if he listens to this, he'll make fun of me. But Nick Clark and Dan Nevins, those guys.
Those dudes are so mindful and awesome. Yeah, he's cool, dude. He's cool. Hey, I want to say congratulations on what you've done at your studio down there with your community, and that's so great that Baron got back into the Bay Area, where he's from, and is bringing the love back to all the different studios that he's doing that. That's really neat that he's doing that, and I think it's really great that you had him there last night. It's awesome. But congratulations to you and Jen on your success there. It's really great to see you, man. Something you said, Dan, about Sean is he's one of the first like yogi marine dudes. This Sean Silvera guy, like, how did your relationship start?
Well, we met at a program, and then it was just like, oh,
like when you say a program, what do you mean a program? You met at like what kind of a program?
Did you meet? It was like, at the time, but it wasn't AA.
It was Deviants Anonymous for No, it was at a probably level 2. It was a Baptiste yoga training, and I think it was my level 2, wherever that was. Sedona in Sedona, which was great. And I was like, oh, it's Sean. And then everybody was also like, oh, Dan, you're an Army guy. Or you got to meet Sean. Everybody, have you met Sean? Have you met Sean? I'm like, who's Sean? Like, oh, Sean's that cool, huh? And then I met Sean. I'm like, Sean's that cool. Yeah, it was. And then, once you meet, like, for me, and Sean, you probably feel this way too. I think we've had some talks about this over the years. It's like, when I'm a dude and I show up to like a yoga training, like I'm still my first level 1. Like I didn't feel super comfortable being there. I had to be like extremely vulnerable to be like, okay, I'm a dude and I'm doing yoga. And even though today that seems like super fine, like no one would bat an eye today, but like 12 years ago, it wasn't that bad, but 12 years ago, it felt that bad. It felt like, wow, I'm taking a huge risk as a man being in yoga, just from perspective and narrative and story, like with all the story I had about what yoga was and what it wasn't and who it was for and who it was not for, people like me, so, you finally see another dude who's also military and a Marine, which the Marines are like, I don't want to say this, because I'll be doing my whole branch of service, a disservice. But the Marines are just like slightly cooler than Army dudes, because it's just like, it's very, like the crayons are unsalted. They're right. You have right. The whole sort of shtick behind being a Marine is it's like tough, it's badass, and they're like running towards gunfire. Like that's the whole mentality. And so when I found another military dude who was very much a man, very much a dude, and not some hippy dippy like yoga weirdo, the way I had that story in my head, it was like I could breathe a breath of fresh air. Like, oh man, I'm not the only one. And so that was like instant connection point. And we shared a lot of the same interests. Like we both like guns and ate meat, and like not the typical quote unquote yogi of the time. And so, yeah, that just made like an instant bond, instant connection. And then the only thing that sucks is we live on opposite coasts, or other like you and I, Nick. So it's like hard to actually get together and do the things. But when we do, it's awesome. Always.
Hey, Sean, did you have a similar experience when you met Dan?
Yeah, I had heard that there was this new Army guy that was working his way through the programs, and I usually at the time I was at all the level 2s, but maybe 3/4 of the level 1, so I didn't get to his level 1s. But yeah, the word was, oh my God, there's this guy Dan Dan Nevins. He's an Army guy. He's amazing. His practice is amazing. The interesting thing is that he's got no legs was always at the end of the conversation, which I think is pretty cool, but yeah. And I remember the level 2 was at Sedona, and and blown away. I'm like, number one. Yeah. Oh my God. There was a couple, veterans that were starting to work their way in, but, yeah, when I remember assisting Dan, I'm like, he's figuring it out. Like, he does the all the poses differently, and they're perfect. And then listening to him, of course, on the mic, it's like, this guy's got it all together. And it was the thing where fucking finally we've got more of my people coming in. Not saying that, the rest of the community isn't my people, but, I think we've shared in the past. It's like my focus has always been to bring in, I don't know, people more like me, people that wouldn't find yoga, people that, my view, and it's probably of actually both of you guys, like, before I found yoga, is like, yoga dudes, long hair, their shirt down to here, open, probably some kind of beads, smelling like patchouli, and they were only really doing yoga to get with the chicks, you know? And and it's like, they didn't seem authentic. It's like, it didn't make sense to me. And there were definitely somebody I wasn't going to hang out with. So, so that was it was a breath of fresh air. And it's like, yeah. And exactly, like meeting Dan, it was like knowing him my whole life. It was no, this is a new guy I got to get to know. It's like we'd already known each other. So it was really cool.
There is like this stigma, right? I mean, I know, Dan, you said you're like, back in the day when I got into yoga and I was like this dude, and it was kind of uncommon and this and that. I know it's like more common now, but don't you still think that in some way, shape, or form, men have a little bit of a preconceived idea about what yoga is? Because it seems like there's a barrier to entry there for males.
Oh, absolutely. It's a word, and that word has a flavor for people. It has a story, a narrative that's attached to it that probably comes from their upbringing as an adolescent, as a teen, where it's like, oh, well, that's for women, or or like chicks, or whatever, and it's not for me. Like, if you ever saw yoga in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and if you saw yoga like on TV, and it was like or in a magazine, like a fitness magazine, it was not men doing yoga, it was women. And that was like in the United States, that was the visual attached to the word yoga. So for a guy, it just didn't, like, I don't see myself in these pictures. And so that to me is like, I'm resistant to it. Oh no, it's for men too. Well, I hear what you're saying. You know what? Maybe Sean, and maybe you and Nick as well are like this. I sort of equate it to, and this is going to be really dumb, but it's true. You ever like something that smells so bad and you want somebody else to smell it? It's like, oh man, this is horrible. You got to smell it, and that's sort of like, in a way, that's like yoga for me when I'm talking to other men about it. I'm like, no, like, you got to try. And they're like, oh, but I'm like, oh, but it's so good though. But I mean, now things that stink aren't good, but it's sort of like a metaphor that you have to like get them through. They know it stinks, but they're going to smell it anyway. Right? Because you said they should, they're like, oh, okay, I'll do it. But like, instead of being disgusted, they're like, wow, that was not what I was expecting, especially when it's Baptiste yoga, or at least some derivative of Baptiste yoga, some power yoga studio, core power, whatever, that's not some less masculine version of or adaptation of yoga. And they go and they sweat and they're getting into their body sometimes for the first time in their life, as a 30-year-old or later. And they have like day one breakthroughs, like one, just walking in the door and doing the thing that they didn't want to do anyway. And then people's whole lives are changed. And so, yeah, they got to smell the stinky thing, but you got to be the ambassador for the stinky thing and say, no, like, smell it. And like, it's actually great.
The ambassador of the stink, the yoga stink. Yeah, no, I get that. I like the analogy. It's true. I've done that a lot before too. Maybe that defines me as a man in some way. But
I don't see women doing that.
I don't know. I don't know any, but I'm sure there are some out there, some mindful babes that like to share the stank,
Right.
But something else too. I mean, we're talking about Baptiste yoga. Sean, you and I met through Baptiste yoga. Dan, you and I met through Baptiste yoga. And in Baptiste yoga, we use 3 practices and techniques. We use the asana practice, which is the journey into power sequence as an access to creating vitality, power, and freedom. We use meditation as an access to getting present and awakening. And then we use inquiry, which is an access to self-discovery and new possibility. And so there's 3 different aspects that we're working at here. What you're speaking to is the asana. You're talking about how do you get these guys in there and be the ambassador of stink so they're finally getting connected to their body. And then the other 2 aspects of Baptiste yoga, the meditation and the inquiry, are a little bit more emotionally connected in some ways, because at that point, at least my experience is that I started looking deeper into myself. I started feeling sensations and then noticing the emotions that were connected to those sensations, and then journaling those out, and then having clearings and whatnot in an emotional, kind of a vulnerable way, which is something that I was not used to doing as a man growing up. Do you think that there's any part of yoga that is scary, intimidating, or that puts men off in relationship to the aspect of knowing that in some way, shape, or form that they're going to have some emotions that come up?
It's interesting. You guys know I teach inside the prison, San Quentin, and they're all veterans. And these guys, they're rapists, murderers, thieves. And so they come from probably a closer background than, I won't say us, but they're kind of alpha male types, and they will sit and meditate for 2 hours and just nail it. And um, I don't think when they leave the room, they tell everyone else in the cell block that they'll do that. But their physical practice is good too. But the idea that they find such relief, peace, some kind of clearing in being able to sit in meditation and just quiet the world down when they come from this really violent past, it always blows my mind. It's always a thing where I'm like, I can't do that. I can't put a class on the studio, a 2-hour meditation. Nobody will do it. They're too fussy. There's too many things to do. There's too many, there's too much noise in the way. So that always blows me away about, how men from a very different background will sit and just be with their own self for that long. Blows me away. When, like I said, I can't probably find the biggest yogi I know to sit for 2 hours, or close, or would even want to take it on. So that's something big. With like men in general in the studio, we have classes that are 50-50 these days, which is pretty amazing. It's not something we started out with. And, and I've told this story before, like when I started yoga, I was the only guy there, and, it felt weird. I didn't feel like I felt like I was, I don't know, hiding from something from both sides. It was very strange. But I think the biggest thing is I think the narrative on who does yoga has been the biggest wall for most people finding it.
And it's been shifting.
It's shifting huge. Yeah. And particularly with Baptiste yoga, it's physical. I think like when I found it and I've talked to other people, it's like they might come from CrossFit, or they might come from, like whatever, some other kind of like jujitsu, and they get into a yoga class. And more often than not, I hear this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And that's from all these other stuff. And on top of that, there's this 90-pound soccer mom that is doing everything so effortlessly that it's like, wait, I want to be able to do that. and we put up the walls. I'm a dude. I'm not flexible. My muscle mass is too big. I can't do that. But you see those guys come into the studio 6 months later, they're flowing like water, baby. You get the mindset to it and just do it.
Yeah, totally. I get that. Hey, can I ask you? I would say that a lot of men are not as vulnerable as women, or maybe they are as vulnerable as women, but in a different way. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Nick, you were talking about, do men like resist the emotions that come up, and, like some meditation and inquiry. And so that was sort of my experience. Well, I'll say it like this, like meditation and inquiry are very solitude driven activities, right? So when I sit and I meditate, emotions will come up. Now, when I first started meditating, I was actually in a really dark place. Like a friend of mine suggested yoga. I told her she was crazy. There's a whole story around that. And then she suggested meditation, and that was more palatable for me because, I'd read in Harvard Business Review, like some study that they did that meditation regrew gray matter in the brain, which once was considered scientifically impossible. So like that seemed, and I read it in a business review. So like it was more palatable. And so when I did start meditating, I did have a lot of emotions come up, but I was actually like ready because I was in a really dark place and I know I didn't want to stay there. And then I just kept pushing through it, but I was alone. And I didn't learn inquiry until I went to a Baptiste yoga program. And I think that's really, really great because it forces you as the participant, and I don't think all people lean into it, but it forces you as a participant to like, you're listening to other people be vulnerable. So it gives you permission to be vulnerable yourself, to try it on as a guy, like to do it. But I remember, so like my first experience in dealing with like very uncomfortable emotions, surrounding a yoga practice. And I think it's because I was a man. Like I learned yoga again, my friend offered me yoga. I told her she was crazy. It was meditation. Then I said, thank you for like teaching me to meditate. It's actually had real impact in my life. I was going through a surgery where I couldn't wear my leg, and I was divorced, and I had my oldest daughter was off in the army, and I was alone. So I had to do all this rehab alone in my house. And, so no spouse. My oldest daughter was in the army, so she was gone. I had a almost 3-year-old at the time who's 15 now, and I couldn't take care of her hopping around on one leg in crutches. So that whole sort of it was sort of like dark night of the soul, like kind of getting through all that. And then I told my friend, hey, thank you for teaching me meditation. It really helped. And she said, oh, you owe me some yoga. And I was like, oh shit. I kind of have to say yes, but I agreed to 3 private lessons, not with weird yoga people, because I needed to be alone with, one teacher. And she started teaching me, and I kind of don't want to tell this whole story because I'll probably get a little emotional, and it's also long, but I'll summarize it because I want to get to a different story. So I got so like, I went to my first lesson and it sucked. And it was like that, like, one, just buying a yoga mat. Like I had to like refinance my house to go into Lululemon to buy a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and a yoga mat, and I was like, oh man, like cashing in my man card. I'm like, oh, I'm ripping it up. I'm like, I walked into a yoga studio. I'm like, oh my God, I hope nobody saw me, like dealing with all that. And then she starts teaching me yoga. And so, maybe I might tell this whole story. Damn it. So she's, teaching me how to stand and how to breathe and like, and I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, but I'm also wearing my prosthetics. I'm really uncomfortable in these prosthetics. Cause one, I just like healed from surgery. So I'm like, I can feel myself bleeding inside the one. And she's teaching me like, how to do warrior one. I'm like, wow, well, there's a pose called warrior. Oh yeah, I'm in. Like, like that whole thing. And she's saying these things like a root down to rise up. I'm like, what's that fucking even mean? Like what root to what, right? Where am I going? Like that whole kind of vibe. Anyway, needless to say, finished the first class. I thought it was dumb. Thought it was the dumbest thing. I checked the box. I did your yoga. It sucked. We're good. And then she called me to schedule the next lesson. And, right about the time I was going to tell her exactly where to put that next lesson, I remembered that I committed to 3, and a commitment is a commitment, just period. And so I signed up for the next one. Like, I put it like a couple weeks out because I didn't want to go right away. Because one, I wanted to heal some more too, and I was dreading it. And then went through that second class, and I'd love to say, oh, it was miraculous. Nope, still sucked. It was still dumb. I was still in pain. I still and it felt bad because I couldn't do it. Like, I wasn't like getting it right, and I'm not used to like not getting things right, especially when it's like physicality or, whatever, even with no legs. And she was still saying that stupid stuff, like root down to rise up. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And I'm just sort of resisting everything that she was trying to teach me. And she was like a brand new yoga teacher herself. And I got so mad and so frustrated. I said, hey, can I just do this with my legs off? And then her eyes were saying like, hell no, because of what am I supposed to tell you to do with your feet? Like, right now you have feet. And so I can tell you to put your foot here or put it at 12 o'clock or whatever. And so anyway, her eyes said no, but her mouth said yes. And I just remember I took my legs off and I basically like threw them across the room. And I'm on my knees on my yoga mat. And I feel like the smallest I've ever felt in my life. There's this like 5'4" yoga teacher, petite woman, like towering over me. And, and she's like looking at me, and I'm curious because I don't even think she really even understood what was happening with me. She was probably putting myself in a brand new yoga teacher shoes. What am I going to tell him to do? Like, how am I going to cue this man's body into a pose? But for me, I already had my mind made up. I'm going to do Warrior 1 because it's a warrior pose. Like, I already knew that's what I'm going to try. And I knew that I'd have to like adapt my legs because I'm on my knees but I figured out how to sort of get my hips in the right spot. And I'm like, okay. And then what's this stupid stuff she keeps saying, root down to rise up? Like, what does it even mean? And I just went back to sports and visualization. And I think we talked about this in a previous episode, Nick, about visualizing. And I visualized roots growing out of my legs into the earth. And then I was like, rise up. Well, in Warrior 1, you put your arms over your head. And in that moment, like when I actually rooted down into the earth and like use that grounding and connection to lift up, to rise up, like not a metaphor, not exaggeration, like the earth, the thing that connects all of us that we stand on and sit on every single day, sent this powerful jolt of almost like electricity. And it's not painful, but like I felt alive. My arms exploded over my head and tears are just pouring out of my face. And it was like I was floating around on prosthetics for the last 10 years. And it was like the earth was saying, Dan, where have you been for the last 10 years? It's like I felt this immediate sense of reconnection and vitality and power. I didn't feel small and broken. In one yoga pose where I hated every moment until then. And I was just like lit up. And I was like, whoa. And I'm like, I have to learn all the poses and how to adapt them and how to do the transitions and, all the, and I was like in. And then by the end of the third lesson, I signed up for Barron's level 1 teacher training in Hawaii because I was like, I don't want to teach yoga because that's dumb. I'm not going to teach yoga. But what I want to do is learn more about yoga. And you're telling me this guy Barron's the guy. So I'm going to go see the guy and I'm going to go and I'm going to listen to what this guy has to say. And I'm going to do it. And so at this point, I have like in 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever, I'm going to Hawaii to do this yoga teacher training, but I have never even been to a yoga class. Right. So I was like, I should probably sign up for a yoga class. And then so I signed up for my first actual yoga class. This is the story I wanted to tell. I signed up for my first yoga class. And I was like all in. And so I just got my mat, and I knew when I got into the room, I'm going to head over to the wall, to the right wall, because I want to be able to put my mat down close to the wall. If I fall, like I have something to lean on, and I want to be able to put my legs out of the way on the wall. So like nobody sees them, trips on them. I don't want them to be an inconvenience for everyone. And so I saw the spot. I walked into the class. I saw where I was going to go, and I started walking to it. And I just hit a wall, like almost like it was physical. I just, in the middle of the class, I just stopped, and my ears started ringing, and my vision was going in and out, and I was losing control of my breath. Like I think I was having a panic attack, and I've never had one before, never had one since. But I was like, Dan, like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And then I realized I had to take my legs off in front of these like 30 other people. And so it might not be a big deal to people, but you have to understand, nobody got to see me with my legs off. Nobody. My doctor, my prosthetist, my wife at the, before that, and my kids. Like that's it. Because, we all have our favorite body part. Like I know, Sean, it's your butt for you. Nick, it's your face and your smile. I don't know what it is. But like we all do. We all have our favorite body part. And for me, mine was always my legs, because I'm still not a big guy, but my legs were always strong and powerful. Like I could beat big jack dudes on leg press, and like I could throw 80 pounds on my back and then run for 20 miles. Like that was my thing. And when they got blown off, I had to deal with that from a body image perspective and just like learning perspective. But then when I got prosthetic legs, we'll see, like from people, if you don't understand, when you lose your feet and the ability to like use the muscles in your legs, everything atrophies and goes, like all the calf muscle that's left, because my legs are kind of mid calf, kind of chopped off right through the middle of my calf. And so all those muscles disappear and they shrink. So it's basically like bone and skin on it. And so it's not attractive. And then my thighs were really big because of the way I used to walk and how I used to work out. And then those muscles completely change because I have to walk a whole new way. And so like my legs are like a shadow of what they used to be. And I don't want anyone to see a white, scarred up, atrophied, like it's disgusting, like this disgusting like leg, where once there was like a leg I was really proud of. And so I'm dealing with all that, and I'm just saying like, oh my God, I have to take my legs off in front of 30 people. And I finally said, I just have to do it anyway. Somehow I found the courage to just keep going. And I walked down and I sat on my mat and I put my legs off on the side. And then I could just feel the laser beam eyeballs of everybody in that room staring at me. And I heard like the whispering, like, what's he doing here? Like what? And then we start like practicing. We're doing this sort of journey into power sequence. And I could just hear people like, why is he here? He's distracting me from my practice. Like, this is just like, it's disgusting. Like it's not what I came here for. And all this stuff is happening. And I just, I remember when the practice was the most miserable practice of my life to date. And of that course, it was my first experience. So I didn't even know if there was going to be another one. I was regretting my decision to go to level 1. I was like immediately, and I was, I just remember at the end, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. And I'm like racing to put my legs on. And then people started to come up to my mat and they were just like, hey, I just want you to know how inspiring that was to watch you and how like cool that is. And I'm like, I was watching you and I was just so impressed at how you could do this and that, like kind of sort of what you had said earlier, Sean. And I just realized that all that I was making it all up. All of the like, why is he here? All that stuff. It was like my brain literally playing tricks on me. But I had to like face it to get through it. And I've never been, that was like, I think my first experience ever with vulnerability. And when I was vulnerable enough to take my legs off in front of 30 strangers, it changed my whole life in the very best way.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah, I don't know if I can follow that up, but I'll give it a shot. I think early conditioning with probably most of us, and one thing, like I have an older brother, he's an amazing guy, but I think there was a part where my own conditioning was if I fucked something up or I blew something up or something didn't go right, um, to not show it, it, it had an effect on me. And, like it probably started early on, like with just the big brother thing. Oh, I'm going to show him how cool I am. That's not going to bother me. I just crashed a dirt bike or I I didn't do something well at school, whatever. And I think, and then deeper conditioning, like in the Marine Corps, something goes bad or we're on a shit hump or hike, um, out for 20 days and everyone's miserable and like being the platoon sergeant, you got to you got to make everything look good, like keep the motivation up. And that sort of thing seems simple, but I think the long term of that is like not showing any defeat, not showing any weakness, not showing any, you know, yeah, any softness was something that got me somewhere. And it was just I think, I mean, it was probably like conditioning a lot of us have, right? Just not showing anything going wrong. And I mean, look at Instagram, people's Instagrams now. It's all the beautiful things in life, right? Um, very few people are vulnerable on there. And I think like then in like my job experience, like, big jobs that maybe went sideways, always looking at I mean, it sounds like a great idea. Always look for the sunshine in a cloudy day, right? But I think the impact of that adds on to this really hard skin. And you don't tell anybody that you screwed something up, or you don't tell anybody that, you were wrong with something. And I think it was just this really deep conditioning that for me, I'm not showing that. I think I'm still like, even with teaching, I don't share a lot about myself 80% of the time, and the classes are fine. But I have noticed when I do, oh my God, the classes are out of this world, right? I mean, people come up to me, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. And honestly, I probably never let people see my own vulnerability until I learned from other people. And like Dan has been just a great mentor with that, being up there, being super vulnerable and, seeing how powerful that is. My side has always been vulnerability is weakness. I'm not fucking showing that. I'm a strong male. I'm not doing that. But, like watching Dan, like just open up, like no guards, no, just being authentic. I think that's when it hit me. I'm not being authentic. I'm like, I'm showing people this version that I want to show them, and I'm not, I'm a fake, So, literally, probably, I mean, I tried not to show vulnerability until maybe 10 years ago. It's always been something I hid. You guys all know my wife. She likes to process the shit out of things. And she's done it. And she's, of course I can be vulnerable with her. Sometimes I pull back and say, oh man, I should have like left that one for later or something. But yeah, it's just it's been a work in progress. And honestly, I still have the old, no, I'm not doing that today. I'm not sharing that. It's too big. It's not, I don't want to do it. But I know that every time I step out deep end of the pool, there's a reward to it. In my meditation practice, I had a really great teacher, and he was my neighbor. He was a Buddhist meditation teacher, and I would do weekly meditations with him. And I would get to a place where I'm sure you guys have had it, complete out of body experience, not having a recollection what happened in that time period, but I'd come out of the meditation and my shirt is wet. I was crying so hard, and I don't know exactly what happened most of the time. But kind of got to this fact where I've got to turn everything off, like take off the armor completely to really open up what's inside and try to figure out what that is. And it's still something I'm working with, but it's vulnerability is definitely an access to some kind of big success. And I know if I tap into it more, I'm going to be more successful. But the fucking armor is so strong, to not allow any of that in. So yeah, I'm still working on it.
When you when you sit in a meditation, Sean, or you go through a rigorous yoga practice, or maybe just like when you're not doing anything physical and you're just like going about your daily life, you say you're talking about this armor that you have. Is there like a couple underlying emotions that you're noticing that are there for you right now? Is there like sadness or anger or resentment or anything that you're like can pinpoint as a specific emotion that's underneath the armor that you're holding onto that you haven't been able to like really process or move through as much?
There's been, I had some pretty heavy childhood trauma that I think that was the main thing I was guarding up against, and worked through that, but it's always going to be there. And so that was, you hear this story, we, especially with veterans, we keep armored up to protect ourselves, and it taps into everything: hypervigilance, not getting too close to people, always questioning people, not fucking believing anything that anybody says. And you get out and join the general population and go for a swim, and the armor sinks you and you die. It's like you have that on you all the time, and it's just not, it doesn't work in every situation. And sometimes we don't unwrap that and unpack it. But it is like in my, Jen tells me all the time, you literally don't trust anybody. And yeah, that's there. And it's a lot from the childhood trauma stuff, and it's a lot from, other things probably. But it's something I just process through, but I've been doing as much work as I can, and it just pops up. It just comes up, and I'll meet somebody for the first time and say, I never want to be in the same room with that person again. And it's like, it could be great, but that first 10 minutes, like I picked something up, the armor was up, and no.
Well, have you ever had the opposite experience of that too? I mean, with your understanding of it now, okay, you're like, okay, wait, I'm not trusting this person. Take a few breaths. This is like part of my like history story. It's in my body some way, shape, or form. And so let me take a few steps back, a few breaths, and see if I can kind of create a relationship here or make something happen here. Do you have that experience too?
I do. And there's two individuals that I've dealt with within the last couple of years. And one, I let the armor down. I tried to communicate. I, tried to make a friendship out of it. And it's still, that person still didn't work out. Like, and I had some coaching from Jen, how to deal with this person. And it was just like, can't do it. Another one, same thing. And I literally told the guy, dude, I can't stand being in the same room with you. When you talk, I get fucking ice down my spine. And he did a bunch of work on himself. And now it's like, he's a great guy. So it's polar opposites of what happened with those two different relationships. Yet didn't think I'd be able to hang out with this one individual, and now I can, and I enjoy his company. And the other one's still kind of a work in progress. But sometimes you only have so much time in the day, and it's like, who do you want to surround yourself with? And sometimes it's like fucking time vampires, man. this individual just stealing my time. You know, I'd rather be with, you guys.
Dude, no doubt.
Yeah.
We can hang out. We can hang out as much as you want to. No, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting to me, what you're saying, and I think I battle with that too in a lot of ways, is distinguishing my intuition. Maybe not distinguishing, but knowing the difference between my gut instincts, my instincts, and my thoughts. Sometimes, like, my thoughts get in the way of me creating a connection or a business partnership or relationship, whatnot. And sometimes my intuition is telling me, like, this isn't a good thing. And so the more that I'm plugged into my body and connected to my body, the more I can just trust, like, my gut instinctual feeling, and sometimes it's not my thoughts that are running the ship, but sometimes I'm like, damn, I am so in my head right now. This could possibly be me putting a story on this person or this situation. Do you know what I mean by that?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know, sometimes they overlap gut instinct and intuition, and you don't know who to believe or who to listen to, so sometimes it just takes time, I guess, with certain relationships. But yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. I got a vulnerable question for the two of you, and I think this is probably where I'm the most afraid in life, and I'm guessing it's common, but I'm so afraid of death. It's just, it get like sends shivers up my spine, dude. My first experience of death was my uncle. He died in a drinking and driving accident an evening after I hung out with him. He was driving, had two people in the car, killed himself. And I remember my dad and my brother knocked on my door the next day and told me, and I dropped onto my knees and just, like, lost it, like, was out of breath, like, gasped for air. And that was my first experience of death. It wasn't like an older person passing away gradually and, like, saying goodbyes and all those things. It was highly traumatic. And so what I've noticed as a pattern through my life is that, like, any sort of death really triggers me, man. Like, I get very emotional about it. I get very worried about it. I create stories in my mind about, like, my kids, like how fucking freaked out I am that I'd lose my kids, how fucking freaked out it would be if I died tomorrow, like all the different things. Like, I live with a little bit of fear behind that. And I don't know, maybe that's common, maybe that's not as common as I think. What's your perspective on death?
I mean, that's pretty deep. But I'll say this is, I don't want to die. Like, I don't want to. And I've almost died a good handful of times too, like really close to death. Like where it actually could have turned that way. And so, like, the will to live in me is, like, extraordinarily strong, which I believe it is in most healthy people. Like, most people who are not, polluted with, perhaps some sort of mental health challenge or, some crippling sort of form of anxiety or depression or whatever that happens. Like, I think most people have this innate real will to live, and I definitely have that. And I should say, I'm not afraid of death. I am looking forward to it because I have a knowing that it's going to be awesome. Now, I don't want to die. I want to live as long as I possibly can to maximize the human experience. And this comes from, I did, well, you guys, I think both know in general, I did an ayahuasca journey in Peru, and they call it the little death. And there's, it's theorized and also sort of scientifically coherent that DMT, which is the molecule dimethyltryptamine, is what the experience of death is when your body, because it's already in your body, and like the experience of actual human death is all of that is, I don't know if the word's metabolized or used or consumed or whatever it is, like that is the experience of death. And then so they put this ayahuasca root, which inhibits the enzymes in your body that keep you from metabolizing DMT. And they put the DMT plants in this sort of like really nasty, bitter tea, and you drink it, and then you have the experience of what they call the little death. And it's, you learn, like in my experience, without telling this whole story, because that will take a long time, is you go through the things you need to go through to sort of realize that everything's going to be just fine. And then ultimately I had this experience of like being in connection with the infinite love of the universe, divine, like heaven. And it's amazing. And then you come back and it's like I learned every answer to every question that has ever been. And like war made sense, and death and poverty and all the struggle and challenge and real, like all the struggles that as humans, like we go through, all the suffering, it all made sense somehow. And I was at peace with it in sort of that state. And that was literally bliss. And then so I have this sort of knowing, and this definitely a belief that when I die, that is going to be where I go. I don't know for forever or for a long time, or if there's something after that, but I'm looking forward to the journey because I know that the who I am that pilots this body is going to endure when this body is no longer able to live. And so there's a lot of peace in that, for me, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense. Dude, cool perspective on that. I like your perspective on that.
Wait, I can wait.
Yeah.
I want to wait as long as
Yeah.
possible. But when the inevitable moment comes, hopefully I'm 180 or whatever it is, then yes, like here we go.
Yeah,
Like I want my funeral to be a party.
Oh hell yeah, we're gonna do that for sure. But that's if you're 180, then I'm gonna really have to be pretty high up there to.
You gotta commit to really longevity for me because you guys gotta be there at my funeral.
I don't know what that party would be like. I mean, we might be all confined to a chair, but like it is definitely we're gonna rock out in our chairs. Sean, what about you? What's your take on death?
Yeah, I've had a number of near-death experiences, two that really stand out that were made a big impact. One was the bad rollover with my vehicle, middle of nowhere sort of thing. And I think after that experience, it was thank God I'm alive. It's like I made it. I shouldn't be here. That should have killed me. And that vibrance that I felt afterwards was amazing. Like it was changed my life in that time period. The other thing that came along is, this health issue I had with my head and brain surgery and all that. And I was definitely in a space where I was getting my stuff in order, like my finances in order. So the family would be taken care of and all that. And honestly, at the time I remember thinking this, like, I wasn't willing to be sick for whatever it was going to be. Like, I didn't want that. And I definitely, like, if this is going to be a lifetime of living like this, I'm not going to do it. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to commit suicide, but I would, go through the process of assisted because I wouldn't do it. I mean, so many things come in. It's like, the financial support of the family taking care of me because I can't walk or I can't move or I'm in bed, then I can't, all that. I remember that experience as, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And really, Dan and I were going through sort of the same medical thing at the same time. And I'm like, how the fuck can this guy have such a great attitude? And I think at the time, Dan, you were like 2 years into not being super healthy.
Right.
And that was definitely a bright light at the end of in my fucking dark spot. But I do remember, like, once I got on top of it, I knew there was a way to get out of it and a doctor that takes care of it. Things changed, but it was definitely a point where the first, or one of the big ones with the rollover, I was so thankful. And this one, I was like, I'm not doing this, it was completely polar opposites. I think currently it's like I'm healthy, but my fitness, like I just think about, I've already lived longer than I'm likely going to live. You have that in your head, and it's like health issues are going to come up, and you just knock them off one at a time and be as healthy as you can, be here as long as you can. And when death comes for me, I think I'll be ready. I mean, I have a strong enough faith that I'm not super freaked out of, what's going to happen. So yeah, I feel pretty good about it at this point. But yeah, definitely had some crazy polar opposites with death and how it occurs to me. I think I've been more shooken up. I've been, watch people lose their lives, and horrible, not a great thing. And I think I've had more of an impact on myself with that, and actually thinking about, oh my God, that's going to happen to me sometime. And it's made a huge impact. So yeah, it's again, like polar opposites for me. One was, thank God I'm alive. The other was like, I'm ready to go. So yeah. And now I'm ready to go when the time comes. Would love to be here healthy as long as I can.
Amen.
Yeah.
Hey man, dude. No, I appreciate both of your perspectives on that. I'm kind of right in the middle of it too, in some ways. Katie's cousin, who was diagnosed last September with pancreatic cancer, super healthy guy, 55 years old, and he passed away in last month. It's like 8 months after his diagnosis. Really good friend of mine, great friend of hers, and I'm like, oh shit! Like, it's just crazy, just back to a reality check in a lot of ways, that every moment counts, every day counts, because we just don't know. And also from you know, I think full circle in this conversation, which is really cool, is what I heard from you, Dan, and what I heard from you, Sean, is the power of sharing your story and sharing what's going on with you with other people, so that you can first process it for yourself, but also so you can be relatable and connect with people and hear their perspective and learn from their perspective. Because I know for me, just sharing that, which is something I don't share with most people, that I'm afraid of death. I'm leaving this conversation today with just a brand new perspective on it and a new way to look at it. And also, I'm reminding myself right now the importance again of just being present, being connected, because a lot of those things that scare me are in my head. They're thoughts. They're nothing else but thoughts, right? They're just thoughts of things from my experiences in life. And the more that I grab a hold of those thoughts, the more those thoughts become reality. But if I just stay present, stay connected with my kids, my family, you two, this podcast, the life that I'm living right now, I'm like so grateful and have such an incredible will to live. And so just like, it does help me have some peace to be in community with you guys and with other people. And I think that's super important for people too, is to have a community that they feel comfortable enough sharing what's going on with them.
Amen.
Word.
Word.
And share it all. Share it all. Like, like the stories, the fears, the shame. Like, shame is something we can't escape. We all, like, everybody has something they're ashamed of. Like, whether it was me talking about my body or, whatever it is, when we can talk about the things that we are ashamed of, it lightens that load. And then that is the experience of vulnerability. It's like being able to just say the shameful things. And then what you realize is everybody's like, oh, that's nothing. You should hear what I'm ashamed of. And you're like, oh, it puts everything in perspective. And that's, I think, how vulnerability really moves the needle in connection and human connection. And as men, like, you have boys, right? Nick, Sean, you have girls, a girl, I have girls, right? As a boy, you are taught from a kid, you fall down, stop crying, rub some dirt on it, you're going to be good. And a girl, you're like, oh no, babe, oh, my angel, my perfect petunia, like that whole, it's a complete, we are grown up with an expectation of a way of being. And it comes from everywhere. It comes from your parents. It comes from society. It comes from social norms. It comes from all of that. And then so I think it's challenging for men to be vulnerable, because it's really breaking a whole cultural paradigm, and especially military, sports teams, especially the Marines, Sean. Like, it's like, you do not show weakness. And not showing the weakness and not addressing shame and those things serves you in those purposes as the hunter, as the breadwinner, as the protector. And what I have come to experience over the last decade plus is you can do both, right? You can actually still have the machismo manliness of all of the sort of dominant male traits that you would want to keep, and still keep them, as well as sort of lean into the feminine energy a little bit to be more vulnerable and more sharing and collaborative, and then have moments like this where you can just be real and authentic. And I know that Nick, at your house, and then here at home, and Sean, for you, if someone broke in to your home right now in a home invasion, that you would handle it in the best way, well, in the only accurate way to handle a home invasion. And so it doesn't actually rob you of your masculinity. It actually enhances it.
It's interesting. I have this, as you were speaking, I am with kids and with my daughter. You guys know Skylar, and there's this experience where, in action, I like did. It's almost this shameful conversation. I like had this. Oh, I fucked this one up, and it was this experience where we had to put a dog down, and we had the person come to put the dog down, and talking about being vulnerable, your dog's dying here. And we had, Jen, myself, and Skylar, who was at the time maybe 12. And, the dog's going down, and Jen and I are just bawling, right? Just completely coming apart. And our 12-year-old daughter is like, it's going to be okay. Like, she completely had it together. And in the moment is like, oh, I fucked this one up. Like, she's not feeling anything. She's not, she was modeled after like me not showing any vulnerability. I fucked it up. And I think maybe I did. And at the same time, she just coped with what was going on better than I did. And Jen did. Yeah. Yeah. So everyone's watching, especially your kids. And if they're modeling off of you, it's rough, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting you say that too, though, because like I know my boys, when Uncle Brian died, I was being pretty emotional about it. Like, not just like, I was tearing up and trying to have conversations with him about it, and then Sawyer, bless his heart, he's so funny. He's like, so Uncle Brian is dead? I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, so we're not going to see Uncle Brian again? It's like, no, we're not going to see Uncle Brian again. And he's like, I'm going to miss Uncle Brian.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to miss him too, but it wasn't like, there wasn't as much emotion connected to it. And so the other part of it that I was going to speak to based off what you're saying with Skylar is that, like at that age too, they have limited experiences of death and loss and whatnot. And so for them, I feel like, at least my boys, it's a little bit more black and white. It's like, oh, he's dead. Yeah, it's just the facts, where with me, there's the stories behind it and all the experiences I had with them and all those things that I like hold tight as emotions. But Owen's the same way. It's a little bit more black and white. So I don't know if maybe you didn't fuck it up. Maybe it's just that at that point in her life, she was seeing it differently.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But what's so cool, dudes, is that the intention of this show, and I feel like it really came together great, is redefining strength, shifting the narrative from toughness means hiding your emotions to strength is embracing them. And boy, I think we tackled that in a lot of different ways, you mindful dudes. Is there some final thoughts you want to say, Dan?
Yeah, sure. So, and to your point, and one, I completely agree with you, but I think the third differentiator for me is emotions. I want to recognize, integrate, but I don't want to make decisions because of. Right. So it's sort of like, I want to recognize my emotions. I need to know that I'm experiencing emotion before I maybe say something. It's like, hey, I'm in the experience of anger right now. And it's not smart for me to try to get my point across to my spouse right now. And so it's sort of recognizing the impact that emotions have on my general way of being out in the world. And so, and recognizing that's why I'm so grateful for meditation as an awareness practice. It's because the better I get at sitting still and being in the present moment and awakening to these new possibilities of being able to experience emotions and recognize them for what they are, and then use that as a tool to navigate my life better so I can ultimately make the right choices to be the person I ultimately really want to be as a husband, as a father, as a man, as a podcaster, and as a mindful dude.
Right on, brother. Amen to that. Sean, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, I think with me, it's like come to the realization that you have a big toolkit. You, like Dan said, there's emotion, there's fear, there's anger, there's a lot there, and don't let any of them override. Like, keep the you in the background, and use it all as a tool for your own self-development and for others. Like, people see that, and if it's vulnerability, you show them, like, yeah, I'm a dude, drive a big truck, shoot animals sometimes, yeah. I like building shit, and just like let them know that's all part of the package. I think at least the way I grew up is, no, you don't show that. You don't show that. And like I said earlier, it's like, so I'm hiding something. I'm not authentic, and just being authentic and taking out the filters, but making sure the parts don't completely take over your life. Really important for me.
Yeah. Damn right, dude. You got that straight. I agree with you, Dan, and I agree with you, Sean. And also something that just came up for me too, because we're speaking from our experience of being a man, but I know like there's women out there too, some mindful babes out there that have armor up too. And so of course, on the mindful dudes, we're speaking to the mindful babes as well. Pay attention to, your emotions, notice them, connect to your body, but like, remember that they don't control you. They don't have to control you, and that you can step in front of them and be present with the people that you love and the things that you love, and live your life to the fullest. And that's what we're all about here on the Mindful Dudes. It's been an awesome show, and really it's the first time that Dan and I have had a guest, and we brought on we brought the heat, dude, with the special guest for Sean Silvera. Hey, right, Sean.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a part of this show, man. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to having you on the show again. What do you say? You want to do that again sometime?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. We're just redefining strength, and a note for you two moving forward is that I am incredibly grateful for you. I know this, but I am incredibly grateful for you and your community, and your listening and your sharing. It enriches my life, and I know it's enriching a lot of people's lives, and we're super excited to continue to share that. For all of you that are listening to the show, please share this with your friends, your family, get the word out, because we're spreading a really good positive message here on the Mindful Dude Show. Mindful Dudes is brought to you by Play Hard and Love Big Radio, which is the official podcast of Spotted Dog Yoga and Stand Up Paddleboard Company. Check us out at spotteddogyoga.com. If you want to find us, head to all the major podcasting platforms, including YouTube, and search for Play Hard and Love Big Radio. Look for the ones that are titled Mindful Dudes, and you'll find Sean and I and Dan jabbing the jab and talking the talk and making things work out in the world. We really appreciate you following us, and look forward to having you on our next show. Everybody, have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys.
See you in the future, dudes.